A year before Michael J. Fox returned to TV in Spin City, his Back to the Future mom/accidental love interest had just become one of the most recognizable faces on television. Lea Thompson starred as Caroline, the 30-something-year-old cartoonist living in Manhattan on the hit show Caroline in the City. It was charming, it was funny, it won a People's Choice Award for Favorite New Television Comedy Series, and then it crumbled. We're talking a chain reaction of bad decisions that body-slammed a top 4 show, followed by a death blow from its own network that left fans furious and the cast in disbelief. This is the rise and ugly fall of Caroline in the City. Now, before we start, give this video a like if you watched Caroline back in the day and subscribe for more retro TV deep dives. So by the mid-90s, NBC was a ratings juggernaut. Friends had just finished its monster first season, Seinfeld was the #1 show on TV and about to enter its 7th year, ER was right behind it at number 2, and Frasier was winning Emmys like stuffed animals at the county fair. The only problem was at 9:30. That 30 minutes between Seinfeld at 9 and ER at 10 was the most valuable real estate on television. Any show that claimed that spot would get a ton of views. It was occupied by Frasier, which was so successful NBC was able to move it to Tuesdays. Replacing Frasier, however, wasn't that simple. They tried Madman of the People. It was ranked 12th in its first season, which sounds great, but when you've got the top 2 shows on either side of you, 12th is horrible. So it was axed after just 16 episodes, making it one of the highest rated shows ever to be canceled during its freshman season. So yeah, NBC needed a winner, and they found one. It just happened to be owned by their biggest rival, CBS. Caroline in the City was originally a romantic comedy about an older woman dating a younger man. The writers, Fred Barron, Marco Panett, and Dottie Dartland, wrote it with Judith Light in mind. They pitched it to CBS and they liked it, but rejected it because it had too many rom-coms in development. But CBS could still get cash by producing the show, then licensing it to another network. So they took it to NBC and NBC snapped it up. But they didn't want Judith Light to be the star. They wanted Lea Thompson. At that time, Lea was 34 years old and still famous from her massive Back to the Future trilogy. But she was at a crossroads. A catastrophically bad film she did in 1986 called Howard the Duck, as she put it, devastated her film career. I mean, she did movies like Dennis the Menace and the Beverly Hillbillies. She wasn't unhireable, but that one box office disaster severely damaged her credibility in the film industry and made getting big roles challenging. But her luck was about to change. She did a CBS made-for-TV movie called The Substitute Wife in 1994, which caught the attention of Warren Littlefield, the president of NBC Entertainment. He loved her charm and comedic timing, pitched her on transitioning from film to television, and signed her to a development deal. And the timing was perfect. NBC was building their must-see TV empire around trendy 20 and 30-somethings living in New York. Lea Thompson was in that age range, she was recognizable. They just needed to find the right vehicle. So when that CBS sitcom came across their desk, NBC snagged it, then promptly turned it into a show about a 30-something cartoonist living in Manhattan. And to guarantee it was a hit, they brought in James Burrows to direct the pilot, the same guy who directed the pilots for Cheers, Frasier, and Friends. This wasn't just a boost for Caroline in the City, it was a coronation of sorts. For the cast, they got Malcolm Getz to play Richard, the brooding colorist who would become Caroline's slow burn love interest. Getz was a theater actor and classically trained pianist. He could sing, dance, do Shakespeare, anything you could throw at him. Amy Peets played Annie Spadaro, the chaotic neighbor who was also a dancer in the Broadway musical Cats. Eric Lutz played Del Cassidy, who wasn't just Caroline's on-again, off-again boyfriend, but also the merchandising manager of her comic strip, so she couldn't escape him even if she tried. Andy Lauer was brought in to play Charlie, the delivery boy who quickly became part of the recurring cast, and Tom LaGrua played Remo, who owned Remo's, Caroline in the City's version of Central Perk. They filmed the pilot in February 1995, a few months after Lea Thompson gave birth to her daughter, Zoe Deutsch, who is now an actress as well. She was literally breastfeeding between takes. But if that weren't stressful enough, on her first day of shooting the second episode, her father died. But she toughed it out, and on September 21st, 1995, Caroline in the City premiered between Seinfeld and ER. In the pilot, Caroline breaks up with her boyfriend Del, who quickly finds another date. To save face, her new colorist pretends to be her new boyfriend during a dinner, and of course, Richard would eventually develop feelings for Caroline. A whopping 30.4 million people tuned in, and 3 weeks later, the show was one of the highest rated new programs on television. Critics loved it as well. Variety's Carol Horse called Thompson's performance winning and predicted the show would hold on to the must-see TV crowd. And for a while, she was right. On November 2nd, 1995, NBC pulled a stunt where characters from Friends, The Single Guy, and Caroline crossed over into each other's shows in a single night. Matthew Perry's Chandler showed up on Caroline, and Lea Thompson, in turn, showed up on Friends, where she runs into Joey and Chandler while they are using a baby to pick up women. Seinfeld famously declined to participate. Larry David wanted nothing to do with gimmicks for ratings. No Seinfeld for you. Anyway, that episode drew 26.9 million viewers. The Thanksgiving episode where Caroline got her own Macy's Day Parade balloon pulled 27.6 million viewers, and the season finale, where Richard secretly writes Caroline a love letter the night before her wedding to Del, pulled 29.3 million viewers. To put that into context, that's 10 million more viewers than the Game of Thrones finale. It finished as one of the top 4 rated shows in American television. And then NBC made a decision that would set off a chain reaction of missteps that would doom the show for good. So the idea was this: NBC wanted to replicate its Thursday night success on Tuesdays. They started by moving Frasier, it worked out well, and now they wanted to do the same with Caroline in the City, which would allow them to free up the Thursday 9:30 slot for a new show, then do it all over again. So they moved Caroline in the City to Tuesdays at 9:30. And it didn't go all that well. The second season premiere pulled in 19.2 million viewers. Not horrible, but by the third episode of the season, it was down to 14.7 million viewers. But it wasn't just the time slot change doing the damage. The show was relying on contrived romantic obstacles and soap opera-style stalling tactics to keep the central Caroline-Richard tension alive. Characters frantically stealing back unread love letters or secretly erasing answering machine confessions. According to critics and viewers, it was becoming predictable. Season 2 finished at number 25 in the Nielsen rankings, a massive drop from the top 4. But the collapse had only just begun. Because it was still a top 30 show, execs thought it was strong enough to carry its own night without a strong lead-in. So for season 3, they moved it once again, this time to Monday nights. It anchored NBC's newly branded must-she TV block with all female-led shows such as Suddenly Susan, which the season before had taken over Caroline in the City's Thursday slot and was at the time the third most watched show in the country. And it didn't work out for anyone. Ratings tanked. Suddenly Susan went from the number 3 show to number 65 without Seinfeld as its lead-in, which means Caroline in the City now didn't have any lead-in support. And at the same time, the tone of the show became less workplace comedy and more dramedy. Richard married his Italian girlfriend Julia, played by Sofia Milos, and a lot of fans hated the marriage plot because she didn't seem like someone Richard would date, let alone marry, and in that sense it felt forced just to keep the tension alive. Between this and the time slot changes, a lot of fans tuned out. The ratings dropped from 25th to 47th, so a show that had been in the top 4 was now middle of the pack. And the writers, getting desperate, were about to shake things up big time, and it would end up destroying the show. In season 4, they changed Caroline's workplace into a dull corporate office building. Rimo's, the Italian restaurant that was the central social hub, was pretty much erased from the show. Richard had separated from Julia in season 3, which, for the fans left, got them excited about Richard and Caroline finally getting together, but the writers messed with that too. Richard had a secret child in Italy with his ex-wife. Then they split up after arguing over whether to have children of their own. Vulnerable, Caroline gets together with her childhood friend Randy. They get engaged and end up at the altar. The season ends with Richard going to the wedding, holding his baby, with the implied intention to stop it and get Caroline back. It was a huge cliffhanger, but by that point, many fans had already checked out. The show finished the 4th season ranked 91st in viewership, making it one of the worst performing shows across all the major networks. But still, it was assumed the show would get a 5th season. It was just 3 episodes shy of the 100 episodes needed for lucrative syndication deals. That's why season 4 ended with a huge cliffhanger. At the very least, it was common to get a half season or a few extra episodes to hit that 100 mark. And this is where things get ugly. At NBC's annual Upfronts presentation, where networks officially announced their upcoming fall schedule, Caroline in the City was nowhere to be found. The show had been canceled. Obviously, this was frustrating for the cast and everyone involved, not only because of the syndication impact, but because the show was permanently stuck with an unresolved ending. So why didn't NBC give them even a pity renewal to hit that 100 episode mark? Well, it's because they didn't own the show or the syndication rights. CBS did. Remember, NBC had only licensed the show. They were the renters, and CBS was the landlord. Therefore, NBC had basically zero financial incentive to help their competitor make bank in syndication. So yeah, it was brutal, cutthroat, but financially shrewd. And above all, an ugly ending to a show that just a few seasons earlier was ranked in the top 4 in the country. Now, while it did enter syndication, because it didn't hit that 100 episode milestone, it didn't have as long a run as other hit shows of the era and, as a result, became one of many forgotten 90s sitcoms. But even though the show faded away, the core cast continued entertaining audiences. Malcolm Getz left the network sitcom grind, returning to the Broadway stage where he earned a Tony nomination for his performance in the musical Amour. Amy Peets has been a prolific television character actress with roles on major shows like The Office, where she played Donna, the manager of a local bar who ends up dating Michael Scott until he finds out she's married. She and Lea Thompson have remained best friends. Eric Lutz continued to act in guest roles on prominent dramas like CSI and House, while launching a successful second career as a professional fine art painter. Andy Lauer shifted gears entirely to become an award-winning independent documentary filmmaker, focusing on global social justice issues. Tom LaGrua made various guest appearances on shows like ER and Home Improvement before retiring from acting in 2002. As for Lea Thompson, she starred in the Hallmark movie franchise Jane Doe and the family drama series Switched at Birth, and built a highly successful second career behind the camera, directing numerous episodes of major television shows like The Goldbergs, Star Trek Picard, and Will Trent. Really, looking back on the whole situation, it makes you understand just how massive Seinfeld and ER were. While between those two shows, Caroline in the City was a top 4 show in the country, then declined instantly once it was moved. Suddenly Susan, which took over that exact same Thursday slot, became a top 3 show, then got moved and crumbled, lasting only 4 seasons. Veronica's Closet took over that same slot, became a top 3 show, then got moved and suffered the same fate. In the end, Caroline in the City did well in what TV folks call the hammock between 2 monster hits. But when it fell out of that hammock, it fell hard, lost its way, and became more of a 90s footnote than a 90s staple. If you enjoyed this deep dive, give the video a like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.